Right now, millions in Scotland, Catalonia, and California dream of running their own countries and writing their own stories. That feeling of wanting to belong to something that truly feels like yours makes complete sense. It is deeply human to want your own language, culture, and history taught in your own schools by your own teachers. However, these conversations rarely address what happens when the flags stop waving and someone must figure out who pays the pensions. Some sovereign nations would trade almost anything for the stability that Scotland or Catalonia currently takes for granted. This isn't about whether independence movements are right or wrong, as decent people will always disagree on that. This is about the actual cost of independence and why the morning after a declaration is when the real difficulty begins. We must start with the dreamers, because their arguments are legitimate and deserve to be taken seriously. Scotland possesses a distinct culture, legal system, and educational traditions that run centuries deep. Catalonia drives 19% of Spain's GDP, and many Catalans feel they are subsidizing a capital that doesn't share their priorities. If California were a country, its economy would be the 5th largest on Earth, surpassing the United Kingdom and India. These are not fringe movements. They are built on genuine economic and cultural grievances, building for generations. When people feel unheard or economically drained, the desire to leave is a recognizably human response. But wanting independence and being ready for it are different things, and the gap between them is where suffering lives. Even the peaceful velvet divorce of Czechoslovakia left the Slovak economy struggling with unemployment and uncertainty for years. Most separations are messier, angrier, and far more expensive than anyone predicted during the marches. A new country immediately needs a currency, which is brutally hard to get right and affects everyone's ability to pay rent. Scotland would have to choose between using the pound without control, joining the euro, or building a destabilizing new currency. New currencies make investors ask if the government is responsible, and if they doubt it, capital flight begins. When capital leaves, interest rates spike, mortgages become expensive, and small businesses find it impossible to survive. Scotland sells 60% of its exports to the UK, which would suddenly become a foreign country with new trade barriers. An independent Catalonia would not automatically stay in the EU and could face a permanent veto from Spain. Brexit showed us that redrawing permanent trade lines causes supply gaps and logistical nightmares even for experienced governments. A new state must build its infrastructure while flying the plane, yet people need functioning schools and hospitals on day one. Consider Belarus, which has been independent since 1991 but remains one of the least free countries on Earth. Independence did not protect its citizens from a predatory state apparatus that jails journalists and silences dissent. Sovereignty by itself is not freedom. It is merely a container, and what matters is what you put inside it. Haiti's 1804 revolution was an extraordinary triumph, but the world punished the new nation for its audacity almost immediately. France forced Haiti to pay enormous reparations for the loss of enslaved people, a debt that lasted until 1947. Haiti was paying its former colonizer billions before it could even build its own schools, hospitals, or roads. Today, Haiti's tragedy is a masterclass in what happens when a nation is isolated and denied international support. In Syria, the collapse of state structures reduced ancient cities to rubble and displaced half the population. The lesson is that when institutions fail and trust evaporates, the suffering falls on ordinary people in descriptive ways. A flag or a passport means nothing when there is no hospital or when you are sleeping in a refugee tent. Scotland currently benefits from the NHS, ensuring every child has access to free healthcare regardless of their parents' income. Economic struggles during a transition would put immediate quiet pressure on that healthcare system through staff shortages and rationing. Catalonia's current frictionless access to 450 million European consumers is not guaranteed if it leaves Spain. These aren't scare tactics. They are the documented mechanics of how international institutions and trade rules actually work. California relies on massive federal funding for wildfire response, military bases, and healthcare programs for its lowest income residents. An independent California would become solely responsible for defense, diplomacy, and disaster response without federal backstops. The safety net is often invisible because it works, making it the easiest thing in the world to take for granted. This argument isn't that people should accept oppression or that their grievances aren't real. It is that independence is a starting point where the real work of building durable institutions begins. The success of Norway wasn't luck. It was a commitment to democratic accountability and public trust built over decades. Norway had a plan and a functioning bureaucracy that didn't evaporate the morning after its separation from Sweden. When you see an independence rally, recognize that the emotion is real, but do not romanticize the difficulty of the reality. Ask who runs the hospitals on day 2 and who negotiates the trade deals when the old ones dissolve. Freedom without functioning institutions isn't true independence. It's just a different way of being alone. We look for the complicated stories underneath the slogans to help you see the world differently.